Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Listen, reflect and absorb. Dear listeners, Sai Ram and welcome to our radio series in which a divine discourse by Bhagavan is played in small parts, and following each part a short discussion is undertaken to reflect on the message. This is a part of Radio Sai's Thursday Live, hosted by Sai Prakash and Prem, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. only on Asia's stream of Radio Sai Global Harmony. Today's episode was first broadcast live on 7th August 2014. The discourses undertaken for study in this program are from the series of discourses delivered as part of the summer course in Indian Culture and Spirituality, 1990.
Offering our humble pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Dear listeners, we welcome you to this week's episode of Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. As always, I have with me Brother Sai Prakash, who is going to be co-hosting the show with me. We are in the final discourse of the 1990 summer course series, and this, I think, is the third or fourth week we are going into this discourse. And this discourse has been on the importance of Veda and Vedanta, and it has been our pleasure to have the company of Pravina sir from the Sri Sathya Sai High Secondary School. Nothing short of an expert in this topic, and we are very glad that this week too we have his company. So before we begin, I extend our hearty welcome to Pravina sir once again.
Thank you.
Sai Ram sir.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, Sai Prakash.
Sai Ram.
In a sense, this has been quite a theoretically heavy discourse compared to some of the other ones we've been through. But that story which Swami narrated last time, that was indeed very interesting, and it's also often Swami would say the importance of Puranas.
Yes.
Where very, very profound messages are hidden in simple stories, and that's what makes them special.
Correct. In fact, the whole story of how he brought out the Vedas, and then the Titli birds came and ate them, and that's what became Taittiriya. Yeah. I think it also has a symbolic connotation to it.
Yeah, last time I just made a mention, the very fact that he omitted the knowledge, which means the digested food. Digested food is being vomited, which means he has simplified such a complex knowledge of the Vedas, which was picked up by the rest of the disciples of the Vaisampayana.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So, when Yajnavalkya actually simplified the Vedas and then gave it out, then he lost all knowledge of them.
He lost all the knowledge, and he decided that he will not have any human guru henceforth. That's why he prayed to Lord Surya, who is said to be the master of all the Vedas. And then Lord Surya became very happy with Yajnavalkya, and he gives him the knowledge which was not revealed to anybody else earlier. That's why that part has become the Sukla Yajur-Veda, which is also called Vajasaneyi.
Correct.
Named after Vajin. Yes.
And I think we had a small discussion where this Vaji is alternatively a horse or a bird.
Yes.
Because in Sanskrit you could have many meanings.
Yeah.
And since Swami mentioned that it is an offering to his forefathers, it's more likely it could be a bird.
Yes, definitely. See, Prakash, that is the beauty of Sanskrit language.
Sir.
You can see a particular word will have a root from where it has been originated. But the root may have so many meanings. Maybe one small example I can give here. When you say the word pranava, actually pranava is nothing but Omkaram.
Correct.
But this pranava actually has got two important roots from which it has been derived. One is Rakshana Dhatu, other one is Alpt.
Okay,
the two important dhatus. But this Alp dhatu has got so many meanings. Rakshana, Gati, Kanti, Tripti, Avagama, Priti, Pravesha, Sravanat, Samissa, Icha, Kirti, Vyapti, Dana, Alingana, Bhoga, Vriddhi. All these mean the different meanings of the same root.
One root has so many meanings.
So many meanings. So depending upon the context, you can see the words are being used. That is the beauty of Sanskrit language.
Wow. Amazing. So, it can be very confusing, no, sir?
It may be confusing, but at the same time, depending upon the context, you have to see the words before that, the words after that, and see the context and develop the meaning.
The only other shloka which Swami often quoted in a very jovial fashion in his discourses, Shuklam Varadaram Vishnu.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Swami would say, Shuklam Varadaram Vishnu Sashivarnam Chaturbhujam.
Yes.
The one who is wearing, adorned with white dress and who is having 4 limbs.
Ever smiling.
Ever smiling. Prasanna Vadanam Dhyaye Sarva Vignopashantiye.
Yes.
Then he says, for those who are devotees of the Lord, they say it is Lord Vishnu.
Lord
right?
Vishnu.
Lord Vishnu. And for atheists, they say that is a donkey.
Yes.
So one who is wearing the white dress, literally meaning one who is carrying the white dress, then has 4 limbs and is always in bliss.
See, one more shloka comes to my mind at this juncture, Sai Prakash, because in Sanskrit you can see the alankara called the Slesha alankara. It's very powerful, which is there in English also, what you call pun.
Okay.
God is nowhere, but if you rearrange them, God is now here.
Correct.
Similarly, one shloka, Yaha Putana Marana Labda Kirtihi Kakodaro Nama Vinita Darpaha Yashoda Alankrita Kirti Ravyat Patiryadunam Athava Raghunam.
Okay.
So this particular verse refers to, if you split in one way, Yadunam Pati, Lord Krishna.
Correct.
Split in other way, Raghunam Pati.
Okay.
To Rama all the way. Yaha Puta Nama Rana Labda Kirtihi. But if you split other way, Yaha Putana Marana Labda Kirtihi.
Beautiful.
Kakodaro Nama Vinita Darpaha Yashodaya Alankrita Kirti Ravyat. Yashodaya, okay, mother of Krishna. But Yashaha Daya Alankrita, the one who is adorned with Yashas Daya, Sri Rama. So like that, they can be applied to both Rama and Krishna. See, that's the beauty of Sanskrit language, you see.
Wow.
There's one small example that I give.
Very nice, sir. Very nice.
I think there's another verse which is about Ganesha also, which comes with contrary words.
Yes. There are quite a few verses.
Ekadantam, Manekadantam.
Yes.
That is also
all depends upon how you actually split the words and rearrange them and try to get the meaning out of them.
I think that's also the reason why when Kumbhakarna and all seeked for blessings from Mother Saraswati.
Yes.
The way they pronounced their wish.
Yes.
That was also, I think, related to this, or Saraswati influenced them to...
That is a different... Saraswati, yes.
Okay. Because under the influence of Mother Saraswati, he asked for a totally different mood.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
See, you can see also... because you are coming to the importance and also greatness of Sanskrit language, if you want to say one dry tree is in front of you, you simply say in Sanskrit, Shushkaha vrikshaha agre tishtati.
Okay.
But same thing can be told in another way. Nirasa taruhu vilasati puratah. So, Shushko vrikshas tishtatyagre is equal to Nirasa taruriva vilasati puratah.
Okay.
You see? So, tough word. Tough sentence. Shushko vrikshas tishtatyagre. It's nothing but Nirasa taruriva vilasati puratah. Both meanings are same. So that's why the Vedic, when you discuss about Vedas and the meanings that can be derived from the Vedas, it's very, very difficult to comprehend.
Correct.
One can possibly comprehend in one way, but other scholar, great scholar, can possibly comprehend altogether different way. At the same time, it's not wrong. It's all different meanings contained in the Vedas. It could be contextual.
And contextual, and also depending on the person who is interpreting it, on his level of understanding.
Yes.
Like there is that famous, writings by Umar Khayyam.
Okay.
He was for long believed to be a mundane poet who wrote about wine and wrote about worldly love and all that. But it seems, I think Paramahamsa Yogananda, he was the one who kind of unraveled it, and he said he's no ordinary poet, he's actually a Sufi saint, and this is what he meant by what he wrote. And the moment that revelation was given, the entire work of Umar Khayyam, took a different color altogether.
Yes.
So I think even in case of the saint Jayadeva, his Gita Govindam is said to have a lot of inner meaning.
Yes.
Compared to what it actually depicts on the face of it.
Exactly, yes. See, all depends upon how you are able to interpret, at what status of mind that you are able to interpret. Possibly you will be able to get a different meaning altogether.
I think that is also the reason why we have the Upanishads and Vedanta.
Yes.
Where the same Vedic mantras were kind of reinterpreted when those saints looked at it even more keenly.
Correct. Yes.
And they brought out the Mahavakyas and they said this is what it essentially stands for.
Yes,
Sir,
yes.
Upanishads, they have the same shlokas which are taken from Vedas, or they have a different set of shlokas?
Different set of shlokas.
Okay.
There could be some repetitions.
Okay.
But usually they form altogether a different literature altogether.
Okay.
Yes.
And Puranas, where do they fit in? Are they a part
Puranas actually, they came into existence much later.
Okay.
According to most of the knowledge that we have, the Puranas actually came much later. Rishas Chandamsi Samani Puranam Yajushasaha Uchista Jajnire Sarve Divideva Divischitaha, which means after the birth of Rishas Samani Chandamsi, Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, after that only Puranam Yajushasaha, then came into existence Puranas.
Okay.
From whom? From where? Uchista Jajnire Sarve Divideva Divischita. From a noble person by name Uchista. A very noble person, Uchista. Agnikunda Samudbhoto Suta Nirmala Manasaha. Now this Uchista actually is, he seemed to have originated from the Agnikunda itself. Such a noble person. He seemed to have given these Puranas originally. From there it has passed on to his children by name Sauti Ugrastravas. From there it was passed on to the subsequent generations. In what form? In the form of various stories. Harikatha, Burrakatha, what we say nowadays, is nothing but actually the stories contained in the Puranas were being revealed.
Correct.
Even today we have this tradition of Harikatha, Burrakatha. So many stories are being very beautifully narrated. But these are actually stories told by Sutas, Suta Puranas. So although Puranas are said to be very old compared to what we have many of the other texts today, they are quite old. But yet the message and the many important principles given in the Puranas are applied even today. That's why Purana, Pura api Navina, Purana. Although they are very old, but yet the message is profound and also very much applicable for today.
Ever new.
Ever new.
Ever
Nava
new.
means
Yes.
new. Beautiful. So we'll go to the next clip in that discourse. I think exactly the point where we stopped was when Swami spoke about Lord Sun giving the
Correct.
knowledge to Yajnavalkya.
Yes.
యజుర్వేదములో రెండుగా విభజింపబడుతూ వచ్చింది.
Yajur-Veda is divided into two divisions.
వేదములు 4 అయినప్పటికీ ఈ యజుర్వేదం విభజించడం చేత 5గా రూపొందుతూ వచ్చాయి.
Vedas are only 4. Because this
ఋగ్వేద, యజుర్వేద, సామవేద, అథర్వణ వేద. అయితే యజుర్వేదంలో కృష్ణ యజుర్వేదము, శుక్ల యజుర్వేదము రెండుగా విభజించడం చేత 5 వేదములుగా రూపొందినాయి.
originally Vedas are 4. As Yajur-Veda was divided into two, Krishna and Sukla Yajur-Veda, they became 5.
ఆనాడు సూర్యోపాసన చేత సూర్యానుగ్రహాన్ని పొంది ఏది ఈ లోకములకు ప్రధానమైనటువంటిది అని విమర్శించుకొని విచారించుకొని అన్ని విధములుగా పరిశీలన సల్పి దేశానికి కొన్ని రకములైనటువంటి యొక్క సామాన్య మానవులకు సరి అయినటువంటి యొక్క కర్తవ్య కర్మలను బోధిస్తూ వచ్చాడు యాజ్ఞవల్కుడు.
Yajnavalkya worshipped God's Son, earned His grace, and he wanted to just know what is very essential for every ordinary human being in this world. For the good of the world, for the welfare of the world, he just found out certain
ఆనాడు
truths.
నా కుటుంబీకులు అన్నదానం సల్పటం చేత కదా ఈనాడు సూర్యుడే వాద్య రూపంలో ధరిస్తూ వచ్చాడు.
As my ancients performed charity of food in the olden days,
కనుకనే
sun god
అన్నదానము కంటే అధిక దానము ఏది, తల్లిదండ్రుల కంటే దైవమేది, జగదీతపము కన్న సత్యశీలం వేది, దయ కంటే ఎక్కువ ధర్మమేది, సుజన సంగతి కన్నా సుజన సంగతి కన్నా చూడ లాభం వేది, దయ కంటే ఎక్కువ ధర్మమేది, సుజన సంగతి కన్నా చూడ లాభం వేది, క్రోధంబు కన్న శత్రుత్వమేది, రుణము కంటెను నరునకు రోగమేది, ధరణి అపకీర్తి కంటెను మరణమేది, సర్వదా కీర్తి కంటెను, సర్వదా కీర్తి కంటెను స్మరణ ఏది, సర్వదా కీర్తి కంటెను స్మరణ ఏది. అన్నదానము కన్నా అధిక దానం వేది.
What greater charity is there than charity of food?
తల్లిదండ్రుల కన్నా దైవమేది.
Which greater God is there greater than one's own parents?
జగదీతపము కన్నా సత్యశీలం వేది.
What greater truth and integrity can be there than the tapas?
దయ కంటే ఎక్కువ ధర్మమేది.
Can there be greater dharma than
జన
kindness?
సంగతి కన్నా చూడలాభం వేది.
Can there be greater profit than good company?
క్రోధంబు కన్నా శత్రుత్వమేది.
No greater enemy than anger.
రుణము కంటెను నరునకు రోగమేది.
No greater disease than indebtedness.
సర్వదా కీర్తి కంటెను సంపదేది.
No greater wealth than the good name.
స్మరణ కంటెను మించిన ఆదరణ ఏది.
No greater jewelry or decoration than smarana, chanting the
దీనికి
name.
మించినటువంటివి ఈ జగత్తులో లేవు అని యాజ్ఞవల్కుడు హృదయపూర్వకంగా విశ్వసించి ఆనాటి నుంచి కూడాను తల్లిదండ్రుల సేవ, గురు సేవ, అన్నదానం యందు ప్రధానమైనటువంటి ఒక స్థానమును వహించి శిష్యులకు ఈ విధంగా బోధిస్తూ వచ్చాడు.
Yajnavalkya realizes the truths, declared all these truths which are the greatest things on earth, and he undertook teaching respecting the parents and serving the
విద్యార్థులారా,
parents.
ఏకాదశి దినము మన యొక్క క్లాసెస్ ప్రారంభమైంది.
Dear students, our classes started on Ekadasi
తిరిగి
day 11th.
ఏకాదశి దినముతో మనము ఈ క్లాసెస్ ను పరిపూర్ణం గావిస్తున్నాం.
We are closing and completing our classes on again the
ఈ
Ekadasi day.
క్లాసులన్నీ కూడాను కేవలము ఏకాదశి వ్రతములుగా మనం భావించాలి.
We should consider and treat all these classes as the Ekadasi vow
ఈ
itself.
వ్రతములు యందు అనేక మంది పెద్దలు, అనుభవజ్ఞులు,
Learned people, elders who have experienced these things,
హృదయపూర్వకంగా మీకు అనేక విషయములను బోధిస్తూ వచ్చారు.
they have taught you from the core of their heart many important things.
ఊరకరారు మహాత్ములు వారందరూ కూడా మీకు సులభంగా చిక్కేటువంటి వారు కాదు.
Those great teachers who have taught you are not easily available to you.
స్వామైనా మీకు సులభంగా చిక్కినాడు కానీ వారెవరు చిక్కరు మీకు.
Swami at least is easily available, but not those people.
అలాంటి వారు వచ్చి ఎంతో భక్తి శ్రద్ధలతో, ప్రేమతో, హృదయపూర్వకంగా మీకు అనేక విషయాలు బోధిస్తూ వచ్చారు.
Such great people have come with a lot of interest, with a lot of devotion, have taught you many valuable things.
వీటిని భక్తి శ్రద్ధతో
These will have to be taken with a devotion,
స్వీకరించారు.
and you have also accepted
కేవలం స్వీకరించినంత మాత్రమున చాలదు,
by merely receiving them with devotion. It is not sufficient.
ఆచరించాలి.
You have to practice them.
ఏ కొన్నైనా కూడాను మీరు ఆచరణలో పెట్టి దీనిని ఇతరులకు కూడాను ఆదర్శప్రాయంగా అందించాలి.
You must at least practice a few of the things which you have learned here and make yourselves
ఈ
ideal.
వేదమునందు మనం గుర్తించినటువంటిది 5 ప్రాణములు. వాటిని మీరు భద్రగా ఎప్పుడిప్పుడు కూడా క్షణ కూడా మీరు స్మరిస్తూ రావాలి.
You have to constantly remember the 5 life breaths which you have learned here.
అలక్ష్యం చేయకూడదు.
You should not,
గురువుల యొక్క ఆజ్ఞ కాని, తల్లిదండ్రుల యొక్క ఆజ్ఞ కాని, పెద్దల యొక్క ఆజ్ఞ కాని మీరు అలక్ష్యం చేయరాదు.
you should not be indifferent to the commands of your preceptor, parents, elders, and
అవినయంగా మీరు మెలగరాదు.
you should not conduct yourself without humility.
వినేయులై మీరు విద్యను స్వీకరించాలి.
You would learn education with full of humility and obedience.
మీ తెలివితేటలను ఆధారం చేసుకొని అహంకారములకు ఏమాత్రమూ అవకాశం ఇవ్వరాదు.
Do not give room for any sense of arrogance and ego on the basis of your own
ఇతరులు
intelligence.
ఉన్నత స్థాయిలో అభివృద్ధి అందుతున్నారని వారిని చూచి మనము అసూయ పడరాదు.
You should not become jealous of people who are better than you in any respect.
ఇవి నాలుగు మీలో ప్రవేశించిన అసభ్యం అనేటువంటిది మీకు ఆవరిస్తుంది.
If you are
సమాజంలో మీరు అసభ్యంగా ప్రవర్తించడం ప్రారంభమవుతుంది.
If you are having all these four defects in you, then your behavior will not be appreciated and will not be helpful to the
విద్యార్థులారా,
society.
ఈ 15 దినములు కూడా నువ్వు బోధించినటువంటి యొక్క పవిత్రమైనటువంటి యొక్క వేదాంత సారము
Dear students, the essence of the Vedas which you have learned during these 15 days,
సకల శాస్త్ర పురాణ ఇతిహాసముల యొక్క ప్రమాణములను మదించి అందించినటువంటి సుధా నిధి.
this is the sweet nectarine essence which is of all the scriptures, all the Vedas, all the
మీరు
Vedas.
భవిష్యత్తు భావి భారతోద్ధారకులు.
You are going to be the well-wishers of
మీరే
Bharat.
భవిష్యత్తు యందు లీడర్స్.
In future, you are going to be the leaders, you are going to be the leaders.
మీరు ఆదర్శవంతమైనటువంటి జీవితాన్ని అందించాలి.
You should offer your lives as an ideal.
సత్య మార్గములో ప్రవేశించాలి.
Enter the path of truth.
మనము ధర్మాన్ని ఆచరించాలి.
Practice righteousness.
ధర్మో రక్షతి రక్షితః. ధర్మాన్ని మనం రక్షించినప్పుడు మనల్ని ధర్మం రక్షిస్తుంది.
If you protect righteousness, righteousness in turn will protect you.
ఎలాంటి పరిస్థితులు ఎందైనా కూడాను మీరు వీటిని ఏమాత్రం కూడాను ఉల్లంఘించరాదు.
Under any circumstances, you should not violate these things.
లోక సంబంధమైనటువంటి విద్యను మాత్రమే అభ్యసిస్తామని మీరు భావించవచ్చు.
You may consider that you would like to learn only the
ఆ
worldly education.
విద్యలతో పాటు దీనిని కూడాను మనము జత చేర్చుకోవాలి.
Along with that education, you combine this education
ఇవన్నీ
also.
బాహ్య సంబంధమైనటువంటి లోక సంబంధమైనటువంటి జీవనోపాధి నిమిత్తము ఆచరించేటువంటి అభ్యసించేటువంటి విద్యలు.
The worldly education is only for the sake of world and earning a livelihood and having a comfortable physical worldly life.
కానీ వీటి అన్నింటికి ఆధారమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఆత్మస్వరూపాన్ని విస్మరించరాదు.
But you'll have to firmly believe Atma, which is the very basis of all these things.
It was so thrilling to hear Swami say that what you've heard in these past 15-16 days is the essence of all the Vedanta, all the Itihasas, Puranas. To even think that to receive all this from Swami himself, how fortunate were those people who were seated there, and how fortunate are all of us, to go through it again and in our own free time over the span of more than a year to listen to all this. Really, we should feel really grateful for that.
When Swami was giving those 5 qualities, and he says Vinayam should have humility, that statement which he made before, he said Swami also you can get easily, but these scholars,
Yes.
what humility, I mean,
Absolutely.
it was so
Because Vinaya is said to be the very hallmark of a learned person. Vidya dadati Vinayam.
correct, sir.
Okay, Vinayadhyati patratam. Patratva dhanamapno dhanadharmam tatasukam. So Vinaya, humility is the basic virtue that one learned person can have.
Correct.
It's reflected in his behavior.
And he said this is like Ekadasi Vratam. And what Swami has completed in 15 days, I think it is. Because the first day he gave
two discourses, morning
as
and the evening.
fortnight. We have taken 1 year.
And even that Telugu Padyam which Swami sang was so beautiful.
Correct.
Saying what is dharma, what is sin, what
Yes,
is
yes.
wonderful.
Yeah. The importance of even the food and also doing Narayana Seva, Swami has mentioned, I think, in that particular verse.
Right.
Yes.
There's no gift higher than the gift of food.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
In fact, Swami says that is what Yajnavalkya says, because he says that is what has earned me this blessing of receiving this knowledge from Sun God.
Yes, yes. If you see other way also, when we talk about the Sun God, even scientifically thinking, Sun is said to be the ultimate source of energy for all the living organisms.
Okay.
All the plants, when you see, they are able to expose themselves to the solar radiation and prepare food by photosynthesis.
Correct.
Isn't it? So that's why you can see the sun acting as the important or the ultimate source of energy for all the beings, from the sun to the plants, From there, you can see the energy being passed on in the form of food to the next level of this in the food chain to the animals. You can see the herbivores, carnivores as are coming later. So we have got autotrophs, heterotrophs, biologically thinking. So that's how you can see it is the sun who is said to be the ultimate source of energy and sustaining force for all the living organisms. Yes.
And then of course Swami goes on to say that there is no dharma greater than compassion.
Yes.
There's no gain greater than good company.
Now at the same time, I remember here, Prakash, there are quite a few times I've seen personally Swami himself serving the poor. During those days, Swami used to invite all those people who are actually needy people to the Prashant Nilayam, the huge ground. Swami used to make them assemble there. Swami used to go there and personally serve each one of these needy people. I can remember that particular site where Swami is bending down, taking a ladle and serving these people.
The thing is, having gone through it, I think once or twice we've also been part of Narayan Seva. We know how difficult it is.
Yes.
What we've done is actually, a fraction of what Swami has done. In fact, even if we listen to some of these very old devotees in the 60s, 70s, something like 3,000, 4,000 people Swami used to feed personally. It used to take something like 3 hours. Swami would start in the morning and go well into the afternoon.
Yes.
And each person bending, serving, straightening up, bending, serving, straightening up. Unbelievable it is.
In fact, a couple of years back, we had interviewed in Radio Sai one old devotee of Bhagwan, Mrs. Bhatnagar. And Auntie was just sharing her experiences. And in fact, recently I met Auntie in Parthi. She was just on the chair. So I just told Sai Ram. And I just asked her only one question because I remember it from the interview. I asked Auntie, is it still going on? And she said, yes, of course. What happened was, after Auntie's husband passed away, she said, what can I do to serve society? I should do something too. And she decided, let me cook and offer lunch every day to people. What started as her individual effort, and she would cook every day lunch, and at least for 30-40 people who would come to her house, she would distribute lunch. Yes. Now she says, in the interview that was a couple of years back, she said, now it has grown to at least 100 to 200 people every day. And she says, I don't have the means to run the show. I started it as an offering to Bhagwan. And till today, we have not had a problem even for a single day. She says, she started it, she says, I don't have the resources, I don't have the money to run it every day, but things happen. She said, just things happen and people come. I never call anybody, I never ask anybody. People come, they participate. They say, today whatever is to be cooked, we will take care of the expenses. And it has been going on Nitya Annadanam every day. I think we should tell Auntie that this is what Swami is telling here.
Having heard what you said, so sometime back we interviewed one person from Visakhapatnam, one of the main people in the organization there. He shared this really beautiful story,
Okay.
There they have this thing of going to, I think, one of the important places in the city, just outside one of the temples. They would just set up and give breakfast to whoever is there. So a lot of these hawkers and a lot of these people who, the porters who go about and some of the auto rickshaw drivers, they would all come and take this food.
Okay.
It was a breakfast being served there. So one person had gone there to be a part of that for the first time. So there he saw one person very well dressed. He must be in a managerial post in one of the companies. Very well dressed, very neatly groomed. He came, he took a plate, had a breakfast and went. So this person got a thought, this is meant for people who cannot, afford to have breakfast and afford to have 2-3 meals. Why is this person who is looking, pretty well off, why is he coming and having breakfast here? So this person told him, why don't you go and ask him why he comes here. So they went and accosted him and said, sir, you don't seem to be needing this charity, why do you come and have breakfast here? So that person revealed his story, and this is what it is, He had a good job, he was a clerk in some company where he lost his job. Many people are, lost their jobs because of layoffs and all that. He lost his job. He couldn't find another one. So eventually he became a person who goes around picking people's pockets.
Okay.
So every day in the morning, that particular time of the day when it's most busy, he would come into the things and just try to steal whatever is possible, and people's ornaments, people's purses or whatever. So every morning he would get up, but since he had to be early, the job necessitated him to be there during the peak hours. He couldn't have breakfast at home.
Okay.
So his wife was not cooking breakfast for him. So he just would come. Then one day when he came to this particular area, he saw that these people are serving breakfast. So he said, why not finish our breakfast here? So he came, had this breakfast, and then went in search of his first victim. And when he went, he saw in the bus stand an elderly person and a younger looking girl, apparently a father and daughter. And he realized that they're coming out of the bank.
Okay.
So he had a bag in his hand. So he said, okay, today's taken care of. I just need to somehow steal that bag. And for some reason, he just was waiting for the opportune moment when he heard the conversation happening between the two of them. Where that old man said, finally I've managed to save enough for your marriage. And once I get you married off, then I've got no responsibilities. And then it struck him that, that's the money he's carrying. And he said, if I'm going to steal that money, what is going to happen? And when this thought came, he himself was surprised.
Okay.
Because he said, how many people I've stolen like this from? Why am I feeling like this? Okay, for some reason he just could not steal. So that whole day he doesn't do anything, he goes off home. The next morning he comes and he has a doubt. He said, because of the food I ate here. So then again he comes, he eats that food, then he goes out, he's saying that he's just not able to get the thought to steal.
Wow.
And so next 3-4 days he keeps coming and eating this food, then eventually he goes, struggles, finds a job, then he just manages to get some kind of a job, gets into it. So he comes and eats every day here, and then he told this person, sir, I don't come and eat this food because I cannot afford food. I eat this because that is what is keeping me good.
Beautiful.
Yes, I think Swami has very often mentioned about the Patra Shuddhi, Padartha Shuddhi and Paka Shuddhi.
Exactly.
How pure and how sacred the food has to be, and that in what way it induces even good thoughts in us.
Correct.
Yes. And also, if you say, maybe from point of view of this Veda and also Upanishads, you can see in Taittiriya Upanishad, Annat Bhutani Jayante, Jatani Annena Vardhante, the importance of food. All the beings, Annat Bhutani, Bhutani Annat Jayante. All the beings, they take their birth basically from the food.
Correct.
Jatani Annena Vardhante. After having taken birth, they also grow. They become big only by the food. So, if you take in a very gross level, see, food is said to be very, very important. We have Annamaya Kosha as the first one, the very first sheath, outermost sheath. And it's very important that we maintain this sheath properly. For what purpose? For the purpose of having all our spiritual, the upliftment.
Correct.
See, Dharmartha Kama Mokshanam Arogyam Moolam Uttamam. Arogyam, the very important aspect is our own health, good health of the mind and the body, which can be achieved only by taking good food, sacred food. So that's why even Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, which is the very purpose of the life, you can see the food acting as the basis for all these things.
These 2 points that Swami makes also I found very interesting. When Swami says, the only enemy, the most dangerous enemy is one's own anger.
Yes.
And there is no disease more serious than indebtedness. I think this needs to be told over and over again for the modern times where it's the age of the credit card and the home loans.
That's true. I mean, we have seen it happening.
Right. The problems, the debt, debt crisis, which are going on in the world today. To say that the ancients believed that to be in debt is to be like having a disease. Correct. The importance of living within your means.
It's slightly off tangent here, but in the movie Shankaracharya, when he is going as Bhikshu, when he asks food and that lady gives him only the amla fruit in one of the houses, then he has takes that and he goes to the next house where he asks her, why you are in this situation? And she says, my husband does not believe even hoarding food. He says even the idea of hoarding food is not, he says it's not righteous. Because why you want to hoard food when somebody else is in need of it? That's why I don't have anything in my house. And then he goes to the next house where they're actually giving a lot of charity, but he says, no, you have hoarded this food and you are giving it. So I don't know. I mean,
Very subtle things.
There is
Very
this
subtle.
beautiful
Yes.
Chinnakatha which Swami says from the Mahabharata, where Arjuna one day confronts Krishna and says, "What makes you think that Karna is a person who is more charitable than any of us?"
Okay.
He says that we also do so much of charity. Our brother Yudhishthira also so much charity does. But why do you always take the example of Karna to say that he is the most charitable one? So then Krishna says, "I'll prove it to you."
Okay.
And it seems Krishna materializes 2 huge mounds of gold. And he gives one mound of gold to Arjuna and says, "You give it off to people."
Okay.
You distribute it to the people. And then he gives one mound to Karna. So Arjuna immediately what he does, he calls people and he makes that whole mound of gold to be broken down into smaller pieces. And he says that let's give it to 200, 300 people and all that. And he assembles people who need it. He sends out people to see who are the deserving ones and all that. So when Karna is given like this, it seems just then a poor man comes by and Karna says, "Would you offer this charity of this mound of gold?" And he gives the whole thing to him.
That's no doubt. Karna is called Danashura Karna.
Correct.
Krishna tells Arjuna, see, that is why he is different. Because the moment he wants to give, that idea that this is mine is totally out of his mind. That this is mine, I have to utilize it properly, I should give it, to the people who need it. He just gives it without thinking about it. We'll just go to the next clip in this discourse.
కను ఆత్మభావాన్ని విశ్వసించి
Have firm faith in Atma.
ఆచరణ యోగ్యమైనటువంటి ధర్మములను ఆచరించి
Practice though that righteousness. which
వేదము
has to
కూడా
practice.
ఇక్కడ నిషిద్ధ ధర్మము విహిత ధర్మము అని రెండింటిని బోధిస్తూ వచ్చింది.
There are 2 types of dharma. Nishiddha dharma and Vihita dharma.
విసర్జించవలసినటువంటివి స్వీకరించవలసినటువంటివి.
That means things which will have to be given up, things which will have to be followed.
కానీ దురదృష్టవశాత్తు ఈనాడు విసర్జించవలసినటువంటి దాన్ని స్వీకరిస్తున్నారు, స్వీకరించవలసినటువంటి దాన్ని విసర్జిస్తున్నారు.
But unfortunately today, we are practicing things which will have to be given up. We are giving up things which will have to be practiced.
ఇది ఏ పెద్ద అజ్ఞానం.
This is the greatest ignorance.
మనం ఎంత శ్రమపడి ఆర్జించినప్పటికీ విసర్జించవలసింది విసర్జించాలి.
However much effort you have put into earn things,
ఒక చిన్న ఉదాహరణ,
one small example.
నీవు మార్కెట్ కి వెళ్ళావు, 5 రూపాయలు పెట్టి ఒక పెద్ద మామిడి పండును కొన్నావు.
You went to the market, bought a beautiful mango paying 5 rupees.
ఇది నా డబ్బుతో కొన్నటువంటి యొక్క మామిడి ఫలము.
I have purchased this mango by
దీనికి
paying my
5
own money.
రూపాయలు విలువనిచ్చాను.
I have given 5 rupees as the price.
అని దాని తోలును విత్తనాన్ని కూడా నీవు తింటావా?
Will you be able to just eat the skin and the stone inside it?
కాదు కాదు. దాని యొక్క రసమును మాత్రమే నీవు స్వీకరించి దాని తోలు విత్తనాన్ని విసర్జించాలి.
You only should partake the essence and the juice of it. The skin and the seed will have to be
కనుక
thrown
ఈ
out.
జగత్ అనేటువంటి ఫలమునందు
In this world in this fruit which may be word, which may be compared to the world,
దీనిని విసర్జించవలసింది విసర్జించాలి,
give up those things which will have to be given up.
స్వీకరించవలసింది స్వీకరించాలి.
Accept those things which will have to be
అదే
accepted.
మీకు ఎన్నో పర్యాయములు చెప్పాను.
Any
సీ నో ఈవిల్, సీ వాట్ ఈస్ గుడ్. హియర్ నో ఈవిల్, హియర్ వాట్ ఈస్ గుడ్. టాక్ నో ఈవిల్, టాక్ వాట్ ఈస్ గుడ్. థింక్ నో ఈవిల్, థింక్ వాట్ ఈస్ గుడ్. డూ నో ఈవిల్, డూ వాట్ ఈస్ గుడ్. దిస్ ఇస్ ది వే ఆఫ్ లైఫ్. ఇది మనము సరైనటువంటి యొక్క దృష్టిలో పెట్టుకోవాలి.
Any number of times I have told you in the past these 5 things, and you have to remember these 5 things. See no evil, see what is good. Hear no.
చెడ్డను వినవద్దు, చెడ్డను చూడవద్దు, చెడ్డను చెప్పవద్దు, చెడ్డను తలవవద్దు, చెడ్డను చేయవద్దు.
Do not see evil, do not hear evil, do not talk evil, do not think evil, do not do evil.
విద్యార్థులారా, మీరు చాలా అదృష్టవంతుడు.
Dear students, you are extremely fortunate.
ప్రపంచంలో ఇన్ని లక్షల మంది ఉండినప్పటికీ, ఇన్ని కోట్ల మంది ఉండినప్పటికీ ఈ కొంతమందికి మాత్రమే ఇలాంటి సదవకాశం లభించిందంటే ఇది ఎంతో అదృష్టము.
When there are crores of people in the world, if the small number of you have got this great opportunity, you are extremely fortunate.
కానీ లభించిన మీ యందు కూడాను ఏ కొంతమంది అయినా కూడాను ఆదర్శప్రాయాలుగా నిలిస్తే అంతే చాలు.
I would be happy at least if a few people can become an ideal set of students.
ఎటువంటి అధికారం నైనా మీరు చేయవచ్చును.
Accept any authority or any
ఎలాంటి
power.
ఉద్యోగంలోనైనా ప్రవేశించవచ్చును,
You can take up any job that you want.
ఎలాంటి వ్యాపారములైనా చేయవచ్చును,
You can even take up business if you
ఎలాంటి
want.
వ్యవసాయమైనా కూడా నువ్వు సలపవచ్చు.
You can even take up cultivation of
తప్పు
land.
లేదు.
There is nothing wrong with that.
కర్తవ్య కర్మలు ఆచరిస్తూ
While discharging your duties,
ఆత్మవిశ్వాసాన్ని విసర్జించకుండా చూసుకోవాలి.
have firm faith in your Atma.
ఈనాడు లోకంలో ఇన్ని కష్టములకు, ఇన్ని నష్టములకు, ఇన్ని దుఃఖములకు, ఇన్ని అనాచరణకు, ఇన్ని అన్యాయములకు మూల కారణము ఆత్మవిశ్వాసం లేకపోవటమే.
For all the problems, all the difficulties, all the grief, sorrow, sadness in the world, it is not having confidence,
ఈనాటి
self-confidence
మానవుడు
and faith
తనను
in the
తానే
world.
నమ్మలేకపోతున్నాడు.
A person who has no faith in God cannot have faith in
ఇలాంటి
himself.
విద్యార్థులు ఎందుకు ఏ విధంగా ఉన్నారంటే, తన జోబులో ఏదైనా ఒక 100 రూపాయలు ఉంటుంటే దీన్ని నేను ఖర్చు పెడతానేమో, ఫ్రెండ్ ఈ 100 రూపాయలు నీ దగ్గర పెట్టుకోనుండు అని అంటాడు.
Today students do not have self-confidence. If they have got a 100 rupee note with them, they hand over this 100 rupees note to the friend and say, I
తన
will spend
100
it, keep
రూపాయల
it with
నోటు
you.
తానే కాపాడినటువంటి యొక్క అపనమ్మకంలో ఉండినటువంటి వాడు ఇతరులను మాత్రం నమ్మగలడా?
A person who does not have faith in his own,
ఇచ్చిన నిమిషం నుంచి కూడాను వాడు తిరిగి నాటిస్తాడు, ఇవ్వడు, ఇస్తాడు, ఈ అనుమానం నీలో బాధింపజేస్తుంది.
after handing over this 100 rupee note to your friend, you are charged with the doubt whether your friend will return the
కనుకనే
money or not.
మొట్టమొదట సెల్ఫ్ కాన్ఫిడెన్స్, ఆత్మవిశ్వాసాన్ని పెంచుకోవాలి.
Therefore, in the very first instance, you should have self-confidence.
సెల్ఫ్ కాన్ఫిడెన్స్ మనం అభివృద్ధి పరుచుకున్నప్పుడే సెల్ఫ్ సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్, అప్పుడే మనకు తృప్తి కలుగుతుంది.
Only when you have self-confidence, you can get self-satisfaction.
ఆ తృప్తి ఎంత ధనం ఇచ్చినా కూడా మనకు లభ్యమయ్యేటువంటిది కాదు.
That kind of satisfaction cannot be obtained by any amount of money.
ఆత్మవిశ్వాసమే లేకపోతే తృప్తి అనేటువంటిది ఉండదు.
If you do not have self-confidence, you cannot have self-satisfaction at
అసంతృప్తి
all.
జుజో నష్ట అన్నాడు. అసంతృప్తి కలిగినటువంటి వాడికి అన్ని నష్టములే.
A person who is discontented or dissatisfied will face
కనుక అన్ని
innumerable
నష్టములకు
problems and loss.
కష్టములకు గురి కాకుండా ఉండే నిమిత్తమై తృప్తిని మనం సంపాదించుకోవాలి.
If you want to be free from any type of
ఆ
problems and
తృప్తి
sorrow,
ఆత్మవిశ్వాసంతోనే మనకు లభ్యమవుతుంది.
have satisfaction that you can get only through self-confidence.
కనుక సెల్ఫ్ సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్ వచ్చిందా ఇంకా ఒక్కరు అడగనక్కర్లేదు, ఒక్కరు చెప్పనక్కర్లేదు. సెల్ఫ్ సాక్రిఫైస్, తాను త్యాగం చేస్తాడు.
If you have that self-confidence, without any person telling you, you are prepared to make self-sacrifice.
ఈ సెల్ఫ్ సాక్రిఫైస్, ఈ త్యాగం చేసిన సెల్ఫ్ రియలైజేషన్ అక్కడే మనకు లభిస్తుంది.
Once there is self-sacrifice, the self-realization dawns automatically.
కనుక ఆత్మ సాక్షాత్కార నిమిత్తమై మనం ఎప్పుడో ఎక్కడో ఏ కారణం చేతనో అనేటువంటి భ్రమలను మనం విసర్జించి ఈ యొక్క భావములను, పవిత్రమైనటువంటి త్యాగములను మనము ఆచరించినప్పుడు అప్పుడే అక్కడే అన్ని విధాలు కూడా మనకు లభ్యమవుతుంది.
If you want to get self-realization, there is no need for going to any particular place or doing any sadhana. If you follow these principles and make
కనుక
self-sacrifice,
ప్రతి విద్యార్థి కూడాను సత్కర్మలలో ప్రవేశించాలి.
therefore every student should enter into good
సత్కర్మలు
action.
ఆచరించినప్పుడే చిత్తశుద్ధి మనకు కలుగుతుంది.
Good action confers purity of heart.
చిత్తశుద్ధి కలిగినప్పుడే జ్ఞాన సిద్ధి లభ్యమవుతుంది.
Purity of heart alone will give you wisdom.
ఇవన్నీ కూడా మనలోనే ఉంటున్నాయి.
All these things are
మనం
available
బయట
within
పోయి
you.
ఎక్కడో వెతకనక్కర్లేదు.
No need for searching
ఏ
externally.
గ్రంథములు మనం చదవనక్కర్లేదు.
No need for reading any book.
తన యందు తాను వెతుక్కుంటే ఎప్పుడైనా మనకు లభ్యమవుతుంది.
If one searches within oneself, everything can be obtained.
అక్కడ వాల్ క్లాక్ ఒకటి ఉంటుండాలి.
There is a wall clock there.
ఈ వాల్ క్లాక్ లోపల 3 పిన్నులు ఉంటున్నాయి.
There are 3 hands in the wall clock.
ఒకటి నిమిషముల ముళ్ళు,
One is minutes
ఒకటి
hand,
సెకండ్ ముళ్ళు,
seconds hand,
రెండవది అవర్ ముళ్ళు. ఈ
hour hand.
సెకండ్ ముళ్ళు, నిమిషముల ముళ్ళు, అవర్ ముళ్ళు, గంటల ముళ్ళు.
The seconds hand, minutes hand and hour hand.
దీనిని చక్కగా మనం పరిశీలన చేస్తే, పరిశోధన చేస్తే ఎంత సరి అయినటువంటి అర్థములు మనకు లభ్యమవుతాయి.
If you carefully observe them and inquire, great lessons can be learned from this.
ఆ సెకండ్ ముళ్ళు టక్ 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 అని 60 ఇండ్లు మాత్రమే ప్రయాణం చేసినప్పుడు ఈ నిమిషముల ముళ్ళు ఒక్క ఇల్లును మాత్రమే చేరుతుంది.
When the second hand goes round the entire clock, 60 houses, the minutes hand moves only one house.
చూసారా? మినిట్స్ సెకండ్స్ ముళ్ళు 60 ఇండ్లు ప్రయాణం చేస్తే మినిట్స్ మిల్లు ఒక్క ఇంటికి మాత్రమే వచ్చి చేరుతుంది.
When the second's hand journeys 60 houses, minutes hand journeys only one
ఈ
house.
మినిట్స్ ముళ్ళు 60 హౌసెస్ అనగా 60 ఇండ్లు దాటుకుని వస్తే అప్పుడు అవర్స్ ముళ్ళు ఒక్క ఇంటికి మాత్రమే చేరుతుంది.
When the minutes hand moves 60 houses, the hours hand moves only one house.
మన దేహము ఒక్క వాల్ క్లాక్ వంటిది.
Our body is like a wall clock.
మనము కర్మలు ఆచరిస్తున్నాము, నిర్విరామ కృషి చలుపుతున్నాము. ఇదే సెకండ్ ముళ్ళు. అనేక కర్మలు తెల్లవారి లేచింది మొదలు రాత్రి పరుండున్నంత వరకును మంచి కర్మలు చేస్తున్నాము.
From dawn to dusk, we continuously undertake ceaselessly action.
ఇక్కడ మంచి కర్మలు మనం అనేకంగా చేసినప్పుడు మినిట్స్ ముళ్ళు చిత్తశుద్ధి అనేది ఒక్క స్థాయికి వచ్చి చేరుతుంది.
When we perform innumerable good deeds, our purity of heart moves by one house.
ఇక్కడ ఉపాసన చిత్తశుద్ధితో దైవాన్ని అనేక విధములుగా ప్రేమించి అతన్ని ఆరాధించి భజించి మనం స్మరించినప్పుడు అవర్స్ ముళ్ళు అనేటువంటి ఆత్మ ఒక్క స్థాయికి వచ్చి చేరిపోతుంది.
With a pure heart, if you can love God with all your heart, with all purity, then Atma moves one house.
అయితే సెకండ్ ముళ్ళు కదిలేది మనకు చక్కగా కనిపిస్తుండాలి.
We can see the movement of second
నేను
hand
ఎన్ని
very
సత్కర్మలు
easily.
ఆచరించాను అని చక్కగా టోటల్ వేసుకోవచ్చును.
You can total up the number of good deeds which you have done.
మినిట్స్ ముళ్ళు కూడాను నేను ఎన్ని విధమైన రీతిగా భగవంతుని ప్రార్థన చేస్తున్నాను, ఎన్ని విధములుగా ఉపాసన సలుపుతున్నాను అని అది కూడాను కొంచెం కనిపిస్తుంది ముళ్ళు తిరిగేది.
We also can just see the minutes hand movement such as upasana or worship.
కానీ అవర్స్ ముళ్ళు మాత్రము కదిలేది కనిపించదు.
But the movement of the hour's hand cannot be seen like that.
అయితే ఆ కనిపించినటువంటి అవర్స్ ముళ్ళు నిమిత్తమై ఈ మినిట్స్ ముళ్ళు సెకండ్స్ ముళ్ళు అవసరమే కానీ అవర్స్ ముళ్ళేగిన లేకపోతే ఈ సెకండ్స్ ఈ యొక్క మినిట్స్ వృథా ఏమీ చెప్పలేము.
The movement of the second hand and the minute's hand have meaning because they are meant to bring about a movement in the hour's hand. If the hour's hand doesn't move, what is the use of all these things? Movement.
కనుక మనం ఈ సత్కర్మలు సచ్చింతనలు చేసి ఆత్మవిశ్వాసమే లేకపోతే ఇది కేవలం నిరుపయోగం అవుతుంది.
Whatever good deeds you do, good thoughts you undertake, all that will become useless if you do not have firm self.
That was that clip. What a beautiful analogy of connecting the three, the good actions, the purity in the mind, and the realization which dawns.
Correct. Karma, bhakti, marga, jnana.
Swami is talking mainly about the purity of the senses, panchendriyas, pancha karmendriyas, pancha jnanendriyas.
Correct.
See good, see only good, and don't see the evil. Hear what is good. So on these lines Swami has been talking. Basically, see, even in the Vedas also it's mentioned the purity of the thought, word and deed, and also how all these five senses, pancha karmendriyas, pancha jnanendriyas, in what way they have to be kept pure so that we'll be able to reach out to the highest. I think same that Vedic principle, Swami in a very simple, lucid way, Swami has been telling to all of us.
Correct.
And then, Swami makes this very beautiful point in the beginning of the thing where he says, the lack of self-confidence is what is the reason for all the problems.
Yes.
And many times Swami would say, when talking to students, he would say, after all, you have to fill that, few inches long stomach of yours. That was, in a sense, the self-confidence that Swami was giving to youngsters, saying that, it takes very little to take care of this body of yours, to take care of the family of yours. And if you look at it, that holding nature or that ability to, will this be enough for me? Will this be sufficient for my family? That is what is leading to all kinds of corruption and all kinds of, malpractices in society. That lack of confidence that I can take care, I'll have enough.
Correct.
And Swami has shown by his own examples with what confidence he has taken up such huge projects.
Correct.
And really found a great success in that. What we see today in the field of maybe medicine, in the field of the social work, or maybe the educational institutions, with what great confidence Swami has taken up the issue, and also everything is going on so smoothly. that itself is a living example for all of us.
Definitely, sir.
Then Swami goes on to this point where, how he connects that self-confidence with self-satisfaction. And Swami goes on to say, without self-satisfaction, you cannot self-sacrifice if there is no self-satisfaction. That's an interesting point, because often we think that we give without, when we are denying ourselves.
Correct.
But Swami is saying self-satisfaction will lead you to self-sacrifice. When you feel that contentment, then the ability to give up and the ability to give for others becomes more easy.
And this self-sacrifice alone leads us to immortality.
Right.
That's what Swami is mentioning. The same thing here, sloka also you can see in the Vedas. Na karmana na prajaya dhanena tyagenaiki amratatva manashu. If one has to attain the immortality, it is only by the sacrifice, self-sacrifice, he can achieve this.
Right.
Yes.
No amount of words will describe how beautiful this analogy is of the clock and this one. And there's so many various aspects which Swami used. The idea that a clock can always be there without the second hands. You cannot have a clock without the hour hand. That would make no sense. That's what Swami is saying, that what is the point in having that second hand going round and round? You going on doing karmas, good karmas, what you think is good karmas, if there is no movement in the hour hand, which is your movement towards your reality.
Yes.
I mean, just thinking of this contemporary example that Swami is giving, you didn't have wall clocks in the time of the Vedas, just to put it frankly.
Yes.
But how, in fact, he mentions, I think in this beginning of this clip, how the essence of this entire Vedas, Shastras, Puranas, Upanishads Swami has given us in this series of discourses. And I don't know, it's just a great good fortune. And he himself mentions it, that amongst millions of people, few hundreds are. And there he gives this reason. He says, I'm giving this to you because you are the future leaders of this country.
Yes.
You are the future leaders and pleaders. That's what Swami says. If you look at it, as Swami has always given that importance to youth, and he wanted that youth should have proper understanding of his message and of the message of the Vedas. But how tirelessly he gave it.
Yes.
In fact, I think Sanjay Sani sir had once told us in a class where one Swami had said, Swami would often say 70% of my time I spend with students. Most of my energies I spend in talking to the students and guiding them. So it seems once Swami had told that, every moment I spend with these students, with these children, all the time my eye is on Loka Kalyanam, on the benefit the world will have because of these children getting this chance from me.
Yes.
And that's what when Swami says that you are going to be the leaders of the future, you are going to take up anything. That's what Swami is saying, that I'm not telling that all of you should become sannyasis, I'm not telling that all of you should become teachers. Take up any profession, but make sure that whatever you've learnt and all this kind of reflects and flows through whatever you do professionally or otherwise.
Swami has, that's what made, physically if you think, Swami had made all the effort to give what's good for these children and try to shape their own lives in a better way. I still remember on one occasion, I think Sai Prakash, you were also there, when Swami had called a group of dance boys to the Purnachandra auditorium. I think around 20-25 students were there.
Correct.
And Swami spoke to the students for about 30-40 minutes. In the end, Swami asked, any doubt, anybody?
Okay.
At that time, one boy made bold and asked, he stood up and asked Swami, Swami, how to please Swami?
Okay.
And that is the occasion when Swami said, Swami is very happy with the question. And Swami said, it's very simple. Bangaru, you just do two things. Swami said, first one, talk less. Second one, don't have too much of friendship with anybody.
Have less contact.
Have less contact.
Yes. I remember that.
Can
very
you,
much. Yes.
Swami told these two things. Talk less and don't have too much of contact. See, very simple way, Swami builds these good things in the life of students, and that's how he is preparing the students for a better future, better society tomorrow.
Very true. I think it's the experience of many of our colleagues and our brothers who have passed out from here.
Yes.
When they go into organizations, somehow their innate quality, their innate nature is so different from others. In fact, I'm reminded of this beautiful incident which Brother Sonam shared with us. So he was saying on one of those occasions, very fortunate occasions, when he was going with Swami in the car. Swami was taking him in the car. Yes. And there was another singer who was sitting next to Bhagwan. And Swami first told him, you sing a song. So he sang a song. And then Swami told Sonam, brother, you also sing a song.
Okay.
So he also sang a song. Then he asked Swami, how was it?
Yes.
And Swami said, both of you sang nicely, but you should not have competition. You should strive for excellence.
Yes.
I mean, that statement means so much. And actually, these are the values that we inculcate. And the whole world is full of competition. There is no place for trying to bend and help the other person and to bring him up. I mean, I know of, because we lived in hostels, some of the students who are really brilliant in their studies, how they would spend all their time in trying to help the students who are not very bright.
Yes.
And how beautiful it is.
Yes.
I don't think anywhere else it happens.
Exactly. Yes.
And they are ready to forego their own time, their preparation time to help the others.
Yes.
They could have just, studied more and more and then gone up the ladder.
Rare things to find outside, actually.
Exactly. And one of the teachers whom I asked, school teachers, I asked him, sir, Swami often mentions that students who join here from their early years, they have, by dint of being told these values every day, it somehow gets into you, it seeps into you.
Correct.
And you intuitively know that such and such a thing is right and such a thing is not right.
Yes.
So I asked him, sir, do you really find any difference between students who come from outside in class 11 and students who study in Swami's
from primary school?
Yes. So he told something very, very revealing. He said, for example, if one of the students is not well, is sick, I have seen in a group of 4 or 5 boys, when I just tell them, see, that fellow is not well, somebody should go and help him. The first people who will be ready to sacrifice their own time, they'll be ready to sacrifice their own grade, will be children who have studied from class 1. He said, it's not because they are brilliant students, they score good marks, but that willingness to sacrifice their excellence, their pursuit of getting good marks, whatever, they are immediately ready to go and help their friend. He says that there is a slight hesitation in people who come from outside. What is sir telling me to do? If I go and help this fellow, then when will I study? When will I grow? When will I get good marks? He says, but students who have studied from earlier years, spontaneously they go to help.
Yes. That's what when Swami says that self-confidence is the starting point. That feeling that, if you please Swami, Swami is going to take care. And that student asks Swami how to please Swami. Swami has put that pleasing Swami as the most important agenda for devotees and students who come. So everything else falls in place, because to please Swami you have to do all these things. Reminded of another incident which one of our lecturers had shared when we were studying in Brindavan. There was this youth who was part of one of the early summer courses. Those students who used to enroll in the 70s and all that. So after his education, he had joined one of the companies in Bangalore. So one day he came to Swami and he came to take blessings because his company was sending him to Russia. It was USSR then, the 70s. So there was a global tender being given out by a very prestigious company in USSR. So companies from all around the world were bidding for that contract. So this guy was called to represent his company and go and attend that meeting in USSR, which itself was a surprise because he was quite junior. So he came to Swami to take blessings. And of all things Swami could have told, Swami looks at this boy and says, oh, you're going to Russia. What will you get for Swami from there? And this boy was thrilled. Here is the Swami who will never take anything from anybody, and he's saying, what will you get for me? He said, Swami, anything, you just ask, I will get anything for you. Swami said, oh, you'll get anything for me from Russia? He said, yes, Swami, just ask. And you know what Swami said? Swami whispered in his ear, come back with a pure mind. And that was one end, it was such a profound statement from Swami. The other end, he had no idea what Swami was meaning by come back with a pure mind. So nevertheless, he goes to Russia. And the day before the tender was being announced, the boss of that company who was giving this contract, he arranged for a huge party. where he had invited all these people who had come for that from all across the country. So he had arranged a massive party, and so this boss was himself there, and he was going around making everybody feel comfortable. So he came to the small group where this boy was standing, and understandably it's Russia, and you can imagine that the vodkas and wines would have been flowing. But this boy was in that small group where he was having a cup of fruit juice.
Okay.
So this man, in making people feel comfortable, the boss had drunk from group to group, and finally he came here, and he said, "Why aren't you drinking any of our drinks?" He said, "Because this is famous. Our land is famous for the vodka and for all these things." He said, "Why aren't you drinking?" So he said, "No, sir, I'm comfortable. I don't take any of these hot drinks." So this man kind of got offended for no reason. He said, "Why aren't you drinking? Because this is our, the glory of our country. Why aren't you taking it?" So he said, "I insist that you drink." And he was almost fetching a drink for him. He said, "No, sir, I don't think I'll be the same person if I take a drink." And he got very wild, and he said, "Mister, do you realize I am the person giving out the tender, and if I want, I can give the tender to your company, and you are offending me." So this boy, he was saying later when he narrated it, he said all through this experience he was going through, that Swami's words that come back with a pure mind, come back with a pure mind was ringing in his ear. And he looked at him and said, "Sir, I know, I really am aware of what consequences this act of mine could lead to, but I cannot take this drink." So that man gets very angry and he just turns away and walks off. And next morning, the tender is announced and it is given to this man's company.
That is crazy.
And the reason why he says is that he comes and tells, "I like the confidence with which you stuck to your values." He says, "I liked the confidence you had that I had to stick to these values come what may." He said, "That is what impressed me, and that is why I'm giving you this contract."
That's how Swami infuses confidence in students.
Really? Everything follows once you say that I want to please Swami.
Yes.
In fact, sir, as you were mentioning, Swami said, talk less and have less contacts.
Yes.
It's almost like leaking a question paper, It's like, so somebody asks a question and some of the most difficult question, Swami is leaking out the answer. And in fact, we tried it out. When we were in a 10th standard, I think I mentioned it earlier in the show. But when we were in a 10th standard, somehow we thought that we were eligible for an interview. Because Swami, we have to write board exam. It's not easy. So we need an interview. And we really thought to ourselves, what is the best way to please Swami? And this is what came up.
Yes,
and we said, let us all keep silent.
Yes.
And it was a collective decision.
Yes.
And our whole class kept silent. And generally between two periods, the teacher of the previous period goes out and then the next teacher comes in. There's a lot of commotion and noise and boys running around and talking, and there was absolute silence.
Yes.
And every teacher who entered our class was
Sir
is here.
Yes.
I remember very clearly that particular day when we did it, it was a Tuesday, I remember. And every teacher was so inspired to speak about Swami.
Yes.
And that whole day, we are in 10th standard and we have to do a lot of syllabus, board exam, all that went to the back seat. And just looking at, experiencing that silence in the class, every teacher came and just spoke about Swami, and it was such a beautiful experience. And Swami immediately, he told one of our teachers in the mandir, Mr. Vednaran sir was there, Swami called him and said, "Look at my boys. They are keeping silence.
Yes.
They are keeping maunam to please me." Immediately, we have not sent letter to Swami, nothing. Swami said, "See, they are doing that too." And eventually we did get our interview.
Yes, in a sense, your silence was louder than the wails of prayer, I think.
Yes. Very true. And it is so beautiful. And here Swami says, hundreds of deeds, then Chitta Shuddhi, and then Jnana. If you look at this episode of us keeping silent, because we followed Swami's words, we did the correct action. Every teacher came and spoke only about Swami. And our minds are immersed in Swami. And that led us to proximity of Swami. So, what more do you want?
Yes.
So,
it's beautiful. I think we're running out of time. So it was wonderful reminiscing. Pravina sir, thank you for being with us. It was a wonderful transition from a very theoretical and deep topic to Swami breaking it down to how easily you can achieve all this. Chitta Shuddhi and Atma Sakshatkar. How can you achieve it? Swami breaks it down to, do good actions, purify your mind. And So dear listeners, that is the end of this week's Shravanam Mananam Nididhyasanam. On behalf of you and on behalf of Sai Prakash and myself, we thank Pravina sir for being with us.
Thank you, Sairam.
And on behalf of all of us, let us offer this humble effort of ours at Swami's lotus feet. Thank you listeners for being with us. Join us next week for the concluding part of this discourse, and of course concluding part of the discourses we'll be playing as part of this series. Thank you. Jai Sairam.
Sairam, you just heard an episode of a radio series, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, that is listen, reflect and absorb. This is a part of Radio Sai's Thursday Live, hosted by Sai Prakash and Prem, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. only on Asia's stream of Radio Sai Global Harmony. Today's episode was first broadcast live on 7th August 2014. In today's episode, Mr. G.R. Pravina, faculty member in the Department of Biosciences in the Sri Satya Sai Higher Secondary School, participated as guest. The discourses undertaken for study in this program are from the series of discourses delivered as part of the summer course in Indian Culture and Spirituality, 1990. To listen to the next part of this program, tune in same day, same time next week. Please do write to us and let us know what you think about this program by writing to listener@radiosai.org. Thank you and Sai Ram from Prashanti Nilayam.